Hello everyone, welcome to the video, and the topic for today is JWT or JSON Web Token. So JSON Web Token, as we know, is primarily used in the realm of web development, that is for authentication and authorization. That is, whenever a user logs into a system, then after he is authenticated, a token is generated and provided to him, after which the server recognizes that the person is authorized and has a token that is validated and is recognized. So JWT is a phenomenon which authenticates a user and maintains a stateless transaction or a stateless communication between a client and a server. So earlier, when the sessions were being used, it was difficult for the session based communication to scale, and as well as it was difficult for the session based communication to maintain all that data that was given by the client during authentication. So to resolve the problem of scalability and security, JWT was introduced to maintain a stateless communication through the use of tokens, and that token was validated by the server at every request, leaving the need to maintain the session and also improving the scalability and the security. So what JWT is, we'll see that in the video ahead, the format and how is it being used. So now let's start the video. So we'll start from the introduction, that is, what is JWT? So JWT or JSON Web Token is an open standard for securely transmitting information between a client and a server as a JSON object. So there are two terms that we need to understand here. The first is the open standard and the second is the JSON object. So what is an open standard? Well, an open standard is a specification or a protocol that is openly available to the public. So what does the open standard hold? It opens the set of guidelines or rules that defines how a particular technology, system or a process should operate. So JWT is a open standard that defines how a process should operate, but it is different from open source. If you have also heard the term as open source, so it is different from open source. That is, it has open standard is defined as a document, but the implementation is not provided. That is, open standard, it tells you key you have to have some set of rules to follow, but how that should be followed is not specified. So the specification is up to the implementer, how he or she implements the open standard. So JWT has implemented the open standard as a JSON object. So JSON object is a kind of a way JWT implements open standard. And what is a JSON object? Is nothing but the implementation, that is using the curly braces that JSON uses, and in between we write the information, that whatever we have, the information of the client, that is his ID, the name, or the uh, expiration date of the token and other things, and that is passed from the client to the server, and the server authenticates it. So it is commonly used for stateless authentication. So we have discussed state in our previous videos. I'll drop the link in the description. You can check those videos out to understand about state and other things. But if I explain that in brief, so stateless means whenever a request is transmitted from a client to a server, as soon as the request is over, the server doesn't remember who the client is, and all the request that is coming from the client to the server is treated as new. That is, the client doesn't remember the state of the client, or the server doesn't remember anything about the client. So every request is new. That is, the state is not remembered, the state is not maintained. State means if the client is uh, requesting something from the server, then the request is transmitted and the connection is closed, and the server doesn't remember anything. So JWT uses the stateless authentication through the use of HTTP, which is also a stateless protocol, and the request is token is structured into three parts: a header, a payload, and a signature. So what are these three? Let's see. So header consists of the type of the token and the algorithm that is being used. So it is enclosed in two curly braces, and it has the algorithm that is being used. Typically it is HS256 or SHA256, or the RSA, and the type, that is type is JWT. So these two are there in the header, which defines what algorithm and the type of the token it is. The header encloses that. The payload is the claims, that is, it claims key what does the token has. So payload is also called as the claim, and it is the second part. Claims are statements that are about the user. So whatever user is asking for the token, that information about the user is enclosed in the payload or the claims and other additional data. They can have the who has issued the token, the issuer, the expiration time of the payload, the name and other things. The payload has all that things, and a signature. So to create the signature, what we have to do, we have to take the header, we have to take the payload, the secret key, and the algorithm that is there in the header. And all when all of these things are there, a signature can be created, and that signature is verified and trusted. That signature is verified by the server, and once it's verified, it can be trusted and the request can go on. Okay. And what does the signature do? The signature is used to verify that the message is not tampered with or the message is not changed along the way, and the verification of the sender is also done. All right. So this is the three parts of the JWT that it has, and once it's verified, the client and the server can communicate openly, and every request, once it goes from the client to the server will verify the token, and if the verification is okay, then server will give the client the response of the request that it has given. Okay. So there are some key points, that is JWT is a token format and it's not a login system. So it's a token, that is after all the authentication, the token is given by the server to the client, and that token needs to be verified. So it's not a login system that if you do not have an ID password, then you just by the use of JWT you can log in. That's not possible. So it's a token format and login, not a login system. It contains claims or the payload, which was the second part, the data such as user ID, role, the expiry of the token and other things. And it is signed so that the server can verify. To create signature, we have seen that we need to have the algorithm that is being used, the header, the claims, payload claims and other things, and a signature can be created after that, and server verifies it so that to check if it was not tampered or if the message is secure. And it is stateless, means that the server does not need to store session data. So not every website or not every web page uses JWT. So in today's time, when if you are chasing scalability or if you want to create microservices, then JWT is the perfect way to go ahead. But some scenarios, sessions are maintained, such as the banking websites or the website that help us to book airline tickets or train tickets. They need to maintain session so that the security or the authenticity is maintained. Those sessions are also maintained in scenarios where the server needs to know where the request is coming from, and they can keep a track of that. So in that scenarios as well, sessions are being maintained. But apart from that, if you do not have such concern to maintain the session or to check if from where the request is coming from, and the server should know that collect the data, and the server should understand the client as well. If you do not have such crunches and you want to scale your system in a faster way, then JWT is used there as a stateless protocol, because the server doesn't remember who the client is. It only remembers, or it only authenticates it with the help of the token that is given to him, and on every refresh, or if the user logs out, or if the history is deleted or any other thing, the token, or if the token expires, then a new token is provided to the server and to the client from the server, and the same process repeats. It is signed and the server verifies it. Okay. So typical JWT looks like this. This is the header, this is the payload, and this is the signature. Okay. So what exactly happens during login? So whenever we log into a website, what exactly happens? So we'll see that here. So what a client or a browser sends its username and a password to a server, right? So it can use such as the path of /login or /signup or authentication and other things. And once the path is chosen, the server looks for the user in its database. What does the server do is look for the user in its database. Okay, verifies the password. The password is hashed, and if the password is valid, the user is given a token. So once the user has passed, the database is validated. The what does the client get? The client gets a token from the server. Okay. What is the token called? This token is called as the access token. It is providing access to the client to access the server. So this is an access token, and creates a refresh token as well. This is optional. It's not important to create a refresh token, but a refresh token is also created as an optional token. All right. So what is the access token? The access token has a short life. That is the access token. It has a short life. A short life in the means that it can has a life of 5 minutes, or can have a life of 15 minutes, or even for 1 hour. After that, the access token expires. Okay. So this is the life of the access token. What does it contain? It contains user ID, it contains the email ID, it contains the roles it has, the permissions of the user, and other things. And it was the client, what will do, the client will use this access token for every request or for every API calls to the server. Okay. Now if we have created a refresh token as well, so what does the refresh token has? The refresh token has a long life. And what does it has? The refresh token has a long life. Okay. While the access token has a short life, refresh token has a long life. Long life of how many days? It can have a long life of 7 days or 15 days, okay, or even 30 days or 90 days. And it is stored securely. Where it is stored? It is stored securely, or in a local storage, or or as a HTTP only cookie. So it is stored as a cookie, or it is stored in the local storage, right? So refresh token has a long life of 7 days, 15 days, 30 days, 90 days, and it is stored in the local storage or as a cookie. And the access token has a short life of 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 1 hour, and the client uses this access token to get all the API calls from the server. Okay. So whenever a client accesses the server returns the response as a JSON object, that is the access token and the refresh token, and the access token and the refresh token, which is stored by the client. Fine. So when the client gets the access token and the refresh token as well, so what does it do? So if the client wants to access an API from the server, so what it will do? So it will add the header to the request. So it is called an API. Let's say it wants to access a service on the server, right? A service from the server. So what will we do? So if the client accesses, let's the client wants to access a service. So what it will do? It will, along with the token, it will add a header to that. And the client adds the header, the server verifies, ensure the token is not tampered, and uses secret or the public key to validate. Along with the signature and the expiry, server also verifies the claims of the client or the payload, which is the user ID, roles, permissions, and the type of token it has. And once all is verified, the client is able to access the service he requests, and the server gives the proper response. Now in the next scenario, let's say if the token has expired, the access token has expired, the time limit is over, and the access token is expired. So the server will give the error of 401 not authorized, and give the reason as token expired. What the client will do? It will use the refresh token. The server verifies the signature of the refresh token, the expiry of the refresh token, the presence, and once the refresh token is validated, the server issues a new access token to that person again. So whenever the access token is expired, the refresh token is provided to the server verifies the refresh token, and then a new access token is given to the client. So this way the client does not have to log in to the server again. So this is a seamless session, that is it doesn't have to go again and log in to the page again. So this is a seamless session. Refresh token is provided and the new access token is generated. No need to log in again. Okay. So now the client has accessed all the services, and now he wishes to log out of the system. So this is a tricky part here. Once he decided to log out, so JWT being a stateless communication, the tokens do not go out automatically. So if the user decides to log out of the system, what does he have to do? he has to do that manually, and the token should be revoked. So if once the user decides to log out, what does the server do? The server saves the access token or the refresh token in a cache and marks it as revoked. That is, now this is revoked and you cannot use that. So every request using this access token is blacklisted and rejected. Okay, this is one scenario. So if the user decides to log in again, you should get a new token. So in that scenario, the refresh server removes the old token and deletes the refresh token from the database, and access token will expire on its own. So whenever the user decides to log in again, he can log in again. And this type of scenarios is used in Google, in AWS, in OAuth2, in Okta. That is, whenever the user decides to log out, the server invalidates or removes the old token, deletes it from the database, and the access token expires on its own, and the user logs in again, then a new refresh token and new access token is provided. So if we see the whole summary here, then here we have login, the user gives email ID, password, the server returns the access token, which is short-lived, and refresh token, which has a long life. And once the client is authorized, now if the client wants to access any API, then he, along with the token, he encloses the header, the server verifies and responds the access token after the expiration. If the access token has expired, let's say after an hour, then the client sends the refresh token to the server generates a new access token, and the client can again access a protected API, and once he decides to log out, then the refresh token is either deleted or blacklisted, and access token becomes useless because expiry is short-lived. Okay, so this is the full JWT life cycle that happens, and refresh token is deleted in scenarios when we are using Google or other things. So nothing is saved in the database, and every request that you come again and log in again, and a new access token and a new refresh token is given to the server. Okay, so why should we use two tokens? If you have a question that, okay, I need just one token, why am I using two tokens, access token and refresh token? So access token is short-lived. Access token is short-lived. That is, if it is stolen, then damage is reduced because it will automatically expire in a few minutes or a few hours. So it is short-lived. And refresh token is long-lived, reducing user login. That is, if the user access token is expired, then the refresh token is given by the client to the server. The server validates it, that is, it validates the signature, it validates the claims, it validates the header, and only it gives the access token. So if the access refresh token doesn't validate, then the access token is not given by the server to the client. So access token is never stored insecurely because it is short-lived, and plus it goes along with refresh token, and refresh token is an HTTP only, that is, and refresh token is securely stored, which is harder to steal. So this pattern is standard alongside Google, in Amazon, in Firebase, in OAuth, in Apple, and in Microsoft. That is, they use two tokens, the access and the refresh token, one short-lived, one long-lived, and both together. So this was about JWT, and I hope you understood what JWT is and why is it being used, and what are the use of the tokens and how they go side by side when we log into a website or whenever we want to access a website. It is not used in every web pages or in every website. The sessions are maintained by some websites who needs to know where the user is coming from, or who needs to keep a data of the users that are accessing their site. So this was about JWT. I hope you found this video useful. If you found this video useful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel, and do not forget to hit the bell icon below, and keep learning, keep growing. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, bye bye.